Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is a Charlotte based artist and musician. With influences varying from Lupe Fiasco to Miles Davis, he's blending styles and bending the rules with a plan to inspire. Welcome, King Whale.
Oh, thank you. Man, that introduction was so made me feel so good. I'm like, oh, thank you. It's so
we tr-
personalized.
we try to give a warm welcome around here.
Yeah. No, I felt it. I felt it in my soul.
I always like to start with where your kind of story with music all started.
So it's hard to like when I think about my story with music, it's like, did it start when my dad was blasting John Legend in 2004 and I was in the back seat singing along? Or did it start like when I actually started learning music? So I think it's kind of both because, all the music that I've listened to over the years as a kid, just in with my mom playing music around the house while she's cleaning or anything, it really developed my love for music. And then, I come from a very musical family. My grandmother plays bass and piano, and she taught for 30 something years up in Detroit. My mom has an amazing voice. My sister plays trombone, cello, piano, and guitar. I think I'll have to check with her to make sure those are the ones. But yeah, she plays four instruments. My brother plays piano, and he has the kind of ear where he can just hear something and play it. So music has always been very, very strong in my family. Um, but I'm actually the only one that's like tried to pursue it professionally because in sixth grade I started playing saxophone, and from then, I just grew to love it even more. And I always say like I feel like I'm definitely the least talented out of all of my family because I can't do all the things that they do, but I'm the only one who loves music so much that it's what I want to do and what got me into like audio engineering and everything that I do right now. So, um, I guess it's kind of twofold. I would say like part one of my journey in music started when, I was exposed to music just like as a 3-year-old baby listening to music. And then where it really started was just in sixth grade when I started playing saxophone, and it's only grown from there.
Um, so being that, the musical family, what made you kind of take the step in the not necessarily just music direction in general and you could just be professionally playing saxophone today, that could just be the vibe. But what made you kind of get into the like creative portion of the music is already creative in itself, but like the creative, like writing music, producing it, whatever, it within your like artist project, like what made you want to kind of take the step and do the artist thing rather than just kind of staying in one of the lanes and furthering that from where you started?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question actually. And I think it also started in sixth grade. Because again, like playing saxophone, playing jazz music, 95% of the time you're playing music that's already been written. Which again, like I have a gig tomorrow where I'm going to be playing music, and I can't wait, and I'm really excited, and I love doing that. But there's also an artist portion for a lot of musicians where you become an artist and you want to create your own thing. And so the way it started was because I always love my dad hated hip hop music, but I started really liking it when I got into sixth grade. My friends kind of exposed me to it. There were artists that I was discovering that I really liked. And so, like, what I used to do is, like, if there was a rap song that I liked, if there were, because I was in sixth grade, if there were curse words in it, I would like cross them out and I would replace them with a different word. And then that turned into I would start replacing entire lines. So if you had a line that had a curse word in it or something, I would just replace it. And then eventually I started just replacing lines just because. Like it may not have a curse word or anything in it. I just replaced it just because I felt like it. And then that turned into me writing my own raps and writing my own verses to existing songs. And then as I kept going, I wanted to be able to do it myself. So that went from writing raps to me making beats and making new songs on like my school's garage band computer so I could make new songs and put raps on those. And then it kind of feels like everything I like once I had a desire to do something, once I realized I wanted to do it, I kept working on it until I could. So like when I was writing those raps, I realized like I don't want to just write raps on other beats. I want to have my own beats. And then I just started trying to learn how to make them. And then as I kept going, I realized I really like singing, and like I'm like I don't want to just sing over someone else's songs. I want to try writing my own. And then I just kind of started going into writing songs from everything that I learned from music, being in band since I was 12. So, um, it all kind of evolved. I would say the creative aspect definitely started though in hip hop.
Do you find that, I guess probably more from the beat creation, like the instrumental portion of making the music, do you find that any of your like saxophone part of you like really fuses into that? And like, do you find like you ever like make something and then it's like, okay, that totally is like because I also like wear this hat.
Yeah, no, all the time, all the time. I mean, when I first started, like for jazz musicians for saxophones, you like if we have a jazz chart and there's like a tenor sax solo, there will be a bunch of chords, and over those chords you can improvise a melody. And so, I've been improvising melodies ever since I got into jazz band and did that all throughout middle school and high school. Well, like early on when I was making beats, I used to just take the chords from those jazz songs, put them into Logic, and just have a piano like playing the exact chords, and then I put a beat behind it, and that was my song. Until eventually, it kind of evolved into other stuff. But yeah, no, saxophone and jazz has always been the root of everything I've ever created.
That's cool. I mean, and that's like that's kind of just like a natural path of it because you literally
Hmm.
like took the things that you already knew and were doing, used that as like a foundation, and then just like built stuff around it until it got to the point where you didn't need that as your like first stepping stone of that like project. And so it just kind of, and like you said with the like changing the lines and stuff, like it just kind of gradually was like you took a little bit more freedom every time with it, until it was like entirely yours.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly how I would describe it is. And I think I mean, for some people it's completely different, but I think overall that's kind of what music is. I mean, like people say there's nothing new that has been done under the sun, and that's kind of true and it's kind of not. But to me, like when I look at all music, like most of it is just taking something that you really loved and heard and then slowly kind of making it your own. And it could be from, Sabrina Carpenter making disco her own on Espresso, or Teddy Swims making old school R&B his own on Lost Control. Like that's what music is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like there's two sides to it where it's like, oh, there's nothing that's like new, like it's all just some sort of iteration of something that came before. But then there's also the side of it where it's like we will never run out of new music. It's just about how you define it and what lens you kind of look at it through. Because you could really tie any song, like it's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing, where it's like you could connect any song to another song through like six other songs or artists or something like that,
Right.
but we will still have new music until the end of time because that's just how things evolve.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like when people say that, I'm like, well, I mean, okay, but like there's also no new foods. Like all the food that we have is the same food
true.
that we've always had from the earth. I'm not going to stop eating. So like just because like music is sure it gets recycled a lot, but we're gonna keep listening to it and keep taking it in because that's what we do. So like, that's the way I've always seen it. So
I'm not gonna stop
yeah.
eating. Yeah, that's probably important. I like that. That's funny.
Mhm.
What do you find most often inspires a lot of your writing?
A lot of times other music. Like that'll always be like I just got a chance to do a song with Sky Zoo. And my wife, she likes a lot of pop music. So for like when we go on long car rides, we'll listen to a lot of pop. But I went to a show and saw Landon Wordswell, and he was performing with Talib Kweli and Sky Zoo. And I met Landon after the show, and that led to an opportunity for me to get Landon and Sky Zoo on a song. So I sent them the track, and they rapped on it. And as soon as they finished their verses, I was like, my verse is not good enough. I need to rewrite it because they really brought it. So for like, and it's been like a month and a half or so, and I've been like, man, I'm trying to write this verse, but it hasn't really. I'm not really feeling what I need in order to finish it. And then I re-listened to Samurai by Lupe Fiasco, and I went to a couple of his concerts, and suddenly it's like all those juices just started flowing again. And it's not like I was taking things that he was saying, but it's like sometimes that's all it takes. You just like the best jazz musicians that Quincy Jones recently passed away, so no, that's been on my mind a lot. But like the best jazz musicians like Quincy Jones, the way that you get that good is from listening. You always have to listen to other musicians, other artists, and that's how you get that good because eventually it's not like you're taking their stuff and making it your own because you're supposed to in jazz. You're supposed to transcribe a lot of that, but it's also because it helps inspire something in you. And so for me, my biggest inspiration, like for some people, it's taking a walk. For some people, it's eating or whatever. But for me, my biggest inspiration for making music has always been listening to other music. I hear something and it gives me an idea, or I'm like, man, I really like that. I want to do something similar to that. And that's always where it comes from.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's just like putting yourself in the position to consume is
Hmm.
like all it. And it's like not even just like you said, like it's not like you're taking ideas from what you're consuming, but it's like just letting that like energy wise kind of like contribute and then you just kind of are in that headspace. Like for me, like it's always like if I'm in like work mode, I'm in work mode and that's that. Like that's like I will that'll be where the ideas are coming, that'll be like the thing. But then if I'm in like the music area, it's like that's it's about where you're kind of like your headspace is at and then allowing yourself to kind of just be that.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah, and like my greatest goal, like every song I've made, I could tell you what song I heard that made me want to make it or what its inspirations are from. And like my greatest goal would be someone hears my song and it leads them to create something. Like that would I could retire after that, or I guess I don't know if that's true, but I would feel like that would be my number one goal as like when I put music out. Like I would be so happy if I put music out into the world and it inspired someone to make their own. Because I think with all art, it's like if you don't want your art to inspire other people to also make art, you probably shouldn't be doing art because that's just what I mean. The best art is always going to inspire somebody else. And I think the best musicians know that, and that's why they do it. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's all about passing the torch, as I like to put it.
yeah, yeah, that's fire. No pun intended.
If you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would it be called?
Oh, I was not prepared for that question.
No one ever is.
Right? It's like because I've gotten into like so many, like just this year, I'm thinking about like the songs I released. I started with an instrumental lo-fi song featuring a jazz trumpeter from London. Then I released a kind of like ballad pop song featuring a singer from Los Angeles. And then I released like a throwback R&B song from a singer from India. And I'm like, I don't even know like what I would like uh what would it would definitely be like a mix of like jazz, R&B, and hip hop because that's where I live. But like what would I call it based upon my style? Um like smooth vibes, chill out. I don't know. Something that like rolls off the tongue like lo-fi because I feel like lo-fi emerged from jazz and hip hop being combined together and then slowly kind of took on its own genre. Like people don't really consider lo-fi as a subgenre of hip hop or jazz. They kind of consider it to be its own thing. So that's definitely what I would like to create it. And I guess if the name lo-fi didn't exist, that's what I would take. Um, Buy low, is that too derivative? That doesn't really that doesn't really work. Um, mm, man, I really don't know.
I like to kind of think about it in the way of like I think it might be a little bit harder because like you said like jazz, R&B and hip hop is all kind of where you sit,
Hmm.
but I like to think about it in like adding a descriptive word to like the genre you feel like you already sit in. Like this question comes from an artist I've had on here before. that like she was doing this before I started asking this question, and so I kind of stole her idea and made this a question like from the
Yeah, it's a
get-go.
great
But she
question.
did her thing is like petty pop, and so it's like it's
Okay.
you're giving the like genre description, but then you're also like giving a like categorical distinction on top of that that's like not a thing that doesn't like that exists already, and so it's
I
like
see what you
kind of
mean.
just like her thing. um
So
so I
what
don't know
would
if
you
there's
say would be, do you mind if I, what would you say would be yours for your music? And that might help,
um
pass that inspiration along.
the phrase that I've had this one, but I've been wanting to kind of tweak it because I don't. But the thing that I've kind of been sitting on is acoustic honesty,
Oh,
because
I
everything
like
I do
that.
is like
Yeah.
acoustic, whether it's more like acoustic pop or like folk pop-ish or singer-songwriter-ish. It's kind of like that's like I always say that I like my pianos to sound like pianos and my guitars to sound like guitars. I'm not a synth gal, but and then I just, the honesty thing. It also has a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
And I love it when it has a nice ring to it. So, um, yeah,
I
that's
kind of
kind
like
of,
that. Yeah. I really like that. And so like I think I would like right now what I'm like coming up with like almost like wooden, like I feel like I would call it like wooden jazz or wooden hip hop or something along that genre. I'm trying to think of, because it's not really, my style isn't necessarily like boom bap, but it does influence a lot of hip hop. And I would call it wooden because usually when you think of woods, it's very like chill, very serene, and that's typically the kind of music that I do. But also a lot of it has saxophone, and saxophone is a woodwind instrument. Um, so it would kind of be twofold. So yeah, maybe wooden hip hop, I guess for now is what maybe wooden soul I would call it. Probably wooden soul. We'll go with that.
I
Go with
like
that.
that.
Wooden
I like
soul.
that a lot. And I was gonna ask what that with the wooden like where that was coming from because that to me like on just off the bat felt out of left field because I was like thinking of those genres and I'm like wooden doesn't really make sense. But the way that you like it's like a indirect thing with the like chill and then like you said like it's also got that like hint at the saxophone in it. That's hold on to that. That's a good one. That's a good one
I'll
for
keep that in
sure.
mind.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, wooden soul. Like that has a nice little sound to it. That's a good one.
Thank you. Thank you for pushing me to get that question out there. That's yeah, because I feel like that, soul, like at the heart of jazz and R&B is soul. And I feel like that kind of references them both. Um, and then, the hip hop will be there, but I feel like um that references it the most. That, yeah, wood and soul. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
it. I think I'm a rest on that. That check the box. That's
Yes.
my
Yeah, no
answer.
question unanswered here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, is there a song that you've put out that you think best embodies who you are as an artist? Like your one song sample to kind of sum up the rest of the catalog, or even just also give a taste of who you are as an artist. Your thesis track, if you will.
Thesis track. Yeah. So I'm trying to, because like, okay, so I have this one song called I Get It, and it features Jackson Mathod and Valerie Heredia, who's a good friend of mine in Charlotte. And that song embodies me, what I do, and the kind of vibe that I have and my inspirations. I feel like that's the one. It was inspired by a song by Madison Ryan Ward, or she featured on it, called, I can't remember the name of it. I don't know why. I think it's called War. She did it with Lord's Child and a couple other people. Um, and it's a very simple, slick back song, very basic, drum and hi-hat, and it's just two rap verses, a chorus, and then Valerie Heredia sings the bridge, and Jackson Mathod takes a trumpet solo. Um, but that embodies every genre. It's hip hop, it's R&B, and it's jazz all together. And yeah, that would be the one. And I perform it live. I really love performing it live too because I get the audience to sing along because the hook is very catchy. And it's my favorite song to perform live. Um, I definitely think it's like one of my best songs to date, probably my best song to date. Um, Yeah. And I was thinking so hard. I was like, ooh, what song was it? And then it came to me. I was like, yeah, I get it. That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, getting the I mean, and that'll like from an outside perspective, like if it's one where you can get the audience involved, that's the one they're gonna take home and remember
Right.
because they contributed to that
Hmm.
as a performance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Um, how do you go about finding people to collaborate with? Because every time you've mentioned a song, you mentioned somebody else on it. And
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
where do you, and like you said, India and London and LA. And so like, where are you finding these people?
Um, so it kind of depends. Each one is a little different. So I'll start with I Get It, because that one had three different collaborators on it, because it also gives me a chance to mention that song was co-written by Emily Sage. And that's also why I really love it, because she's a local artist here in Charlotte, but and her voice is absolutely amazing. But she also has a very like I would call her like almost pop jazz because her voice sounds like it belongs on pop, but yet it has such all of her instrumentals and things she does use such like a jazz quality to it. And it's really incredible. And when I first moved to Charlotte, there's an artist named Stephen Day who had a song called Tonight, and that became my wife and I's wedding song, and we had it performed live at our wedding. And so I started getting into his music, and he has this one song with Emily Sage called You Have My Heart. And then so I started listening to Emily Sage. And then when we moved up to Charlotte, I found out she literally lives in Charlotte. And I was like, what? That's incredible. Like, I kind of thought that, she was like out in LA, or one of the big, big music cities, but she was like right here in Charlotte. Um, so that one was just an Instagram message. And she was like, sure, I can help you write that song. Um, one of a frequent collaborator of mine. His name is Justin Mola. I met him. He's a wonderful guitar player and singer. He also went to Full Sail University. But I just met him from a concert in Orlando from before I moved up to Charlotte. Valerie Heredia, the singer on I Get It. She goes to my congregation, so I get to hear her sing a lot. And I was like, "You want to sing on this song with me?" And she was like, "Sure." We even did a little concert together. It was really fun. Um, Jackson Mathod, he was the guy that did a song with an artist that I knew from Orlando, and I really liked it. And so I messaged him and I was like, "Hey man, can you play a solo on this?" And I was like, "You can even come to my place if you need to." He's like, "Yeah, I'll play a solo." He's like, I probably won't record it at your place though." And I was like, "Oh, is it too far for you?" He's like, "Well, I live in London." And I was like, "What? You're out here collaborating with Orlando? Like, I thought you were in Orlando." He was like, "Oh yeah, no, no, I'm in London. I just did this collaboration with." So it shows that you can do stuff overseas, which is really cool. And I think collaborating with him was my first, like, um, I guess introduction to collaborating overseas. Because like those two artists, I also use Sound Better a lot, which is a website where you can kind of collaborate with other artists. And that's where I met the artist from India. Her name is Suvi, and the other artist from, well, actually, I think she lives in Los Angeles now, but I think she's from India. And the other artist, her name is Sarah Sangfelt, and her stage name is Scarlett, and she lives in LA. So yeah, Sound Better, and I think if you just like a lot of collaborations came from just I liked what I heard from somebody. I reached out on Instagram and TikTok. If I heard it on TikTok, I reached out. If I heard it on Instagram, I just reached out, sent a message. Um, and I think if you're an artist and you want to collab with somebody, all they can do is say, I'm not doing features, so just reach out. I mean, the collaboration with Sky Zoo happened because after Landon did his show, I messaged him and asked him if he was doing features, and he was like, sure. He's like, and I can get Sky Zoo on it. And I was like, yes, please. So yeah, I mean, just reach out if you hear an artist and you really want to do a song with them. And I mean, you don't want to be like pushy or creepy, and you definitely want to put like your best foot forward, obviously. But if you do those things and then you ask them and they still say no, I mean, you're still back in the same spot that you were. It
True.
doesn't have to be awkward, it doesn't have to be weird. It's just, hey, are you doing, sometimes I just ask people, are you doing features right now? Um, and that helps put artists that it helps kind of instead of like, hey, come get on this song with me or like, please be on this song. It's like, you ask them like, hey, are you doing features right now? I got a song that I really think you'd sound amazing on. It's kind of like a more chill way to approach it. But yeah, that's pretty much that's just the way I do it. Just reach out.
A more wooden way to approach it, if you will.
Oh man, what if this catches on? What if this becomes fetch? This could be the new fetch. Who knew? Okay.
What? Yeah, no, I no, but that's yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Is it's like if you do it and you get a no, or if you don't do it at all, it's the same thing, but you don't know if you don't try. Like, what do they get? What's the worst thing they're like? They're not gonna like you can't get reported for anything. Like, there's no like backlash that's gonna happen from asking questions about an opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, and if they say no and then your songs end up doing super well or something like that, it'll always end up being their loss. You know
True.
what I mean? You can't go in looking at it like, ah man, I didn't like you can't look at it like it's your loss. Um, I think you have to go from the perspective that this would be a good collaboration. I think it would be good for my career and theirs. And it's also good if you can like bring something to the table as well.
Hmm.
Obviously that helps. Like sometimes I'll trade features for like a saxophone session. Like, hey, you feature on my song, I'll give you sax on one of yours if you want it or something like that. Um, but yeah, yeah, I mean, you're not going to get blackballed or anything like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's not your loss because you were at this level. You had this to go, but there's no that. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing to lose because you were already at ground zero. Like you were already at like the baseline. Unless it
yep,
was like they were there and they were doing it and then it's all of a sudden like psych, that's a different conversation. But people don't
yeah,
usually probably get to that point. Like you're just gonna get ignored in the first place if that's gonna happen. Nobody's gonna spend time on
yeah,
something they're just gonna throw out the door.
yeah.
So, but
Mhm.
yeah. If you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would it be?
Mm, so this one it's mainly tough because I've got to narrow down all the artists. Like it's not tough to pick three. It's like, oh, three, you don't mean 30? I gotta pick just three. So I gotta like whittle it down in my head. But like I said, um every song I do, a lot of songs that I do usually have like three aspects. Like hip hop, jazz, or R&B is pretty much where I'll be. And each one of those has a different inspiration behind it. So I say like for my hip hop side, it's always been Lupe Fiasco. Lupe Fiasco is who inspired me to become an artist in the first place. Because after hearing his music was some of the music that I heard that first of all, I was like, there's no lines for me to change in this because this verse is absolutely perfect. And now I want to make a verse that's as good as this one that I just heard from Lupe. Um, and see, yeah, he's my number one inspiration for being an artist, and um my entire like rap hip hop style comes directly from Lupe. Like there's other influences there too, but he's definitely the number one influence. Um and I'd say number two, I probably would say Chance the Rapper. Just on the singing side, because I didn't start singing or trying to incorporate singing in my music until more recently. Like that's the most recent thing I've picked up, even like singing live. It was something I could never do before, and now I've been willing to try it. And I think it's mainly because of listening to Chance the Rapper and listening to I'm not gonna say we have like similar voices, but like when I hear his voice on something, I could hear my voice as well. And whenever I heard him like try singing or just singing, it just kind of inspired me to start singing. So he's not necessarily like my favorite singer. I mean, that'd probably be like Gallon or John Legend, but I'd say like his style of singing and what he does, like, he sometimes he'll just like Same Drugs is one of those examples where like it's like, yeah, he's a hip hop artist and he just released a song where he's singing the entire time because this song he feels like this is what it needs and this is what I want to do. So I think so he belongs in those top three because his music is the reason why I've been able to incorporate more singing into my music. Um, and then the third one, I'd probably just say Terrace Martin. He's a saxophone player, but he's also a rapper and producer and singer. So he wears a lot of hats and he's incredibly talented. Um, and again, but his number one thing is always going to be saxophone. Like the thing that he's known for is saxophone. And so it kind of inspired me to like, be a triple threat almost, but also hone your craft on what you really, really love and really, really like doing. Um, and that is playing saxophone. That's I don't I don't know. It's hard to say like number one thing because like it depends on what day. Like some days I'll feel like a saxophone player, other days I feel like a rapper, other days I feel like a singer. So I can't really say it's the number one thing, but listening to the way that he plays sax and the way he produces his own music has been a huge inspiration for my productions and my saxophone playing. So that long-winded answer is Lupe, Chance, and Terrace Martin.
Yeah, no, I the point you made about Chance the Rapper makes perfect sense because I hear exactly what you're talking about in terms of like it's not like a rapper trying to be a singer, it's just like a rapper wearing the hat of a singer for when the time is needed. You're
Right.
not trying to do both things. You're just like if that's what it needs, that's what we're gonna do, and that's the job we're gonna get done.
Yeah,
And that's yeah, that's your and Lupe Fiasco is just he's a cool dude. He's doing cool stuff. He
love him
was
so
he
much.
was and when I went through a deep rap phase in middle school at some point, and he was
Oh yeah?
one of the ones.
Oh
Um
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but like you said, the Chance the Rapper point really brings it out because it's like, you know, I'm not John Legend or, Marvin Gaye or any other of the fantastic singers out there. I'm not Celine Dion, and I'm not trying to be her or anyone else. It's like, just if this song needs singing and I can do it, that's what I'm gonna do. And so I think Chance the Rapper is a really great, because he has an amazing voice, but he also knows like what he is, right? And
mhm.
you never hear him and are like, wow, that rapper's trying to sing. You just like, wow, that was nice. That was
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. So yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly. And yeah, yeah, middle school is where I discovered Lupe too. So we've got that in common. Yeah.
uh um yeah. This is the point where I take a question from last week's artist for this week's artist. So the question from last week is,
Okay.
what's the biggest surprise that you've had in your journey as an artist?
Biggest surprise. Um, it feels like there's so many to choose from. I think just learning how close the industry really is. And I think that's partly social media, but a lot of times as a kid, when you're growing up listening to these songs, all the artists that make them can feel very far away.
Hmm.
And as a kid, all of my friends were into like Arctic Monkeys and Foo Fighters and really big rock groups. Um, and that's not even close to what I was raised on. So I didn't go to a lot of concerts as a kid, which is weird because I'm a musician, but I had no one to go to the concerts with me because no one wanted to go see the Lupe show. No one wanted to go see the Yaheem show or the Charlie Wilson show, the R&B that I was raised on. So I just didn't go to I didn't go to my first concert until 2022 with my wife when we saw Jake Scott here in Charlotte at the Fillmore. And I'm supposed to be like a professional musician. So I think biggest surprise is just learning the way that the industry actually works and that these artists, well, yeah, a lot of them are famous and a lot of them are celebrities, like they're not as far away as they seem. Because even just like the song I was able to do with Sky Zoo, I mean, he's collaborated with Talib Kweli, and Talib Kweli is one of the top rappers out there. He's like my number two favorite rapper of all time. Like, meeting him would be absolutely incredible. Um, and I got to go to one of Talib Kweli shows, and I was like right there in the front row. But so you think that like someone that collaborates with him, like Sky Zoo, would be, and he is, still on that level. He's a fantastic rapper, but it's also like a lot of times you look at these things and you're like, man, this would never happen. Like I would never get my song heard by Talib Kweli, or I would never get my song heard by Lupe Fiasco. Um, but now it's like if Talib Kweli is just putting on radio in his car and Sky Zoo songs come up, mine could come up next. You know what I mean? Like it kind of feels like the industry is not as far away as you think. I think for most artists, Um, and like if you're going to a show and you know your favorite artist is performing, talk to the opener, you know, because a lot of times the opener, sometimes that's how those opportunities come up because the opener is also trying to build fans. Um, but talk to the opener, you know, if you like their music, you know, obviously. But if you, yeah, if you like the opener, talk to them, um, you know, learn some insights from them because like you said, it's not as far off as you think. And a lot of times artists that will like take someone on tour with them, a lot of times it's people that they just like. Like it's not because they've created a huge fan base or something like that. It can just be that the artist likes this person and their music, so they took them on tour and had them open for them. Um, so I think my biggest surprise is just, and it doesn't mean that like, you know, you can become famous overnight if you meet this person. It's like it's still a grind, but I think the idea, like everybody's grinding, even the people that are super famous and seem like they've made it, they're still all grinding. Um, and so I don't really know how much sense this has made now that I'm listening to it saying it out loud. Um, but I think just realizing that the industry is not as far as you think, not as far away as you think, and also to remember, like, you know, the industry is bigger than you think too. Like if you play at a bar and you got paid for it, you're in the music industry. If you released a song on Spotify and it got a stream, you're in the music industry. Like the music, it's a big place. Um, it's not as small as it always seems like it is. Um, so I think that that's been my biggest surprise. And I learned all that just from going to more concerts, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it just what we think when we're younger that is so like far and distant and such like of high standard, if you will, is like once you, because it's like things that seem intangible are things that we don't understand the properties of and the steps to accomplish. And so once you gain perspective on, you know, things at different levels and you're not just seeing it like at Taylor Swift level, um,
Hmm.
and you see that there is in between, it's not just like they're up there on the like skyscraper and then it just drops and then there's nothing in between. Um, it seems a lot more tangible, like you said, and it seems a lot like within reach. And that's kind of where it is, where it's like, because, like I said, like growing up, you think making it like doing anything in music is like just doing the Beyonce thing and the Taylor Swift thing and the
Yeah.
Justin Bieber thing and whatever the case may be. But it really like there are plenty of people out there that like make a living on music and you will never hear of.
Hmm.
And it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always more tangible and closer than it seems to be. I like the one of those, it's like a it's not a meme, but it's like one of those like old like drawn in like 2012 cartoon things where it's like the guy underground and he's like digging like this tunnel and it's like the gold or whatever he's looking for is like just on the other side, but he like turns around and walks away. It's like
Oh
it's
yeah,
always
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
right there, like just a little bit farther and it's there, even though you it seems like it's forever away and it's like so far out of reach and stuff. It's like it's always closer than you think it is.
And it's like, and like you said, I wouldn't necessarily like, I don't know exactly what kind of advice I would give like on this. But there's been so many people that I've met because like also when you grow up, people kind of teach you that like when I was in band, the only option was if you want to keep doing music, you got to become a band director. And I'm like, here's the thing. I'm a kid and I already hate kids. So that's not an option, but I want to do music. And they kind of make it sound like if you want to do music, you're just not going to make a living. You either have to become ultra famous or just die or just do something else, you know, do a day job. And there's nothing wrong with doing a day job either at all. But like there's a band that I got a chance to play with before, the Abby Elmore band. We did a show for a wedding over in South Carolina, and they've played gigs all over the country, all over the Carolinas. She performs pretty much almost every night, and that's what she does. You're not going to see her headlining Rolling Loud. You're not going to see her opening up at Coachella or anything like that, but she plays these intimate gigs, bar gigs and stuff, and then it's enough to make a living, and that works. And like that's someone you can tell that's in it for the music and not
Hmm.
for the fame,
Hmm.
because the fame is something that like a lot of people can touch and reach, and if that's what you want as an artist, then it's going to be a very long grind. But for most artists, a lot of that, a lot of the chance to make money comes from the fame, because a lot of artists are able to monetize their fame. Like I always say, like a lot of artists, because I work at Live Nation as well, and a lot of artists have meet and greets where you get to come in and meet the artist, and like that has nothing to do with music. It's just fame. Like the ticket costs extra because they're famous, and you get to come in and meet them and spend a second, shake their hand, and smile. So if that's your goal, it's going to be a lot harder. But if your goal is just to play music, there are ways where you can make a living just playing music. It may not be like this big and glamorous, um, but you can do it. So, um, yeah, the industry is not as far away or as big as it seems.
So, what is your question for the next artist? Now you have to write your own question.
Now I get to come up with my own question. Um, I guess my question would be, how many times have you listened to King Whale in the past month? No, I'm just kidding. Um, my question for the next artist would probably be not necessarily like what inspires you or like what makes you want to do music. Um, but more like what are your favorite things about music? Like why did you choose this over being a banker or going to medical school or being a lawyer? Or even if you are doing those things as well, um, what made you not let go of music? And if you say because I love music, that is not an acceptable answer. It's got to be deeper than that,
I'll make a little like additional subtitled note. If
just so
it's
they know.
if you say that you love music, your answer needs to be rewritten.
And I'm gonna come back and watch the episode just to make sure. Uh,
What is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
um, it's really funny because and I don't like hate to say it, but like I recently went up to Norfolk and Washington D.C. to watch Lupe Fiasco on tour. Um, and he had a few different openers ahead of him, and I just remember thinking like I don't think these openers are giving the audience what they want. And I remember after the show, the guy was like, "Man, I'm so glad Lupe came out there because I could it was hard to go through the openers, and they were good, but you also have to know what who your audience is and does it match up with your music. Like there was a really funny I think it was like March 30th, and in one show in the underground, because I work in a double theater, there's an underground and there's an artist named Big the Plug performing, and then he's this gangster rapper. And then there was another artist, I think his name was like Max something, but he was like a big country artist. And I was like, it would be the best April Fool's prank if they just switched spots for their crowds. And you had like, Max Countryman come out for the gangster rap artist, and just had Big the Plug perform for all the people that were expecting country. Ah, man, that would have been amazing. But I say all that to say, because what sets me apart is I feel like I can go into three different worlds and um give people what they want in each one. Like I can go into the jazz world and play something that, makes you feel like you're in a jazz club. Like if you want to listen to jazz, I can give that to you. Playing saxophone. I can go into the R&B world, whether that's covering a Michael Jackson song on saxophone or just singing a song by Pink Sweats or something like that. But I can also rock in the hip hop world. And I think I understand how each world is different. And I feel like I've had a lot of fun being exposed to that, Charlotte, like the hip hop open mics versus the singing open mics versus the um, jazz open mics. Um, and most of the time, there's not a lot of artists that can play saxophone. So I would say like that's probably my number one thing that like sets me apart. I mean, like aside from Masego and Terrace Martin, I mean, who out there is an artist who also plays saxophone. And so I know that I have something unique at every single show. Like they see me like sing a rap and then I pull out the saxophone. It's like, what? He can do that too. And I'm like, I've actually been doing this longer than the other things. But yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. So I guess I would say versatility. Um, but also, like I said, the more I perform live, the more I understand crowds, um, what they want and what to do. And so I would say if you're a musician, like one thing I wish I learned how to play guitar, or piano. Because if I did that, there would be so many like bar gigs I could do, just me and a guitar, doing really simple stuff now that I've gotten to a chance to sing. So I would say if you're an artist and you want to find something unique to like, help set yourself apart and things like that, um, consider learning a new instrument. Because I mean, the more that you learn, the more you can be useful not only to different gigs, but also to different people. I mean, like if you can play guitar, that's amazing. It's like, I mean, do you have the time to learn piano? Because that band that needs a guitar player might need a piano player one day. Stuff like that. Little things that you can do um to help continue to grow and be unique and set yourself apart. So I think for me, the uniqueness definitely lies in saxophone playing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's every day you see someone that came from like playing a woodwind in band to rapping.
Yeah, that's not the typical path. It doesn't
No.
usually like go that way. But I also, and again, you also got to understand that it's like if I go to a jazz improv show, I'm at a jazz club, if I take the mic and start, rapping, it's not going to fit. It's not
Right,
going to work. So
right.
like again, that's the unique, like I know that I can do a few different things, but I also know what people want to hear. And if I'm at
Time
a
and
jazz
place.
club, right, they want to
Yeah.
hear me play saxophone with the band because again, it's
Mhm.
we work together, we practice this craft and it'll sound good. So, I think that's also something that a lot of artists it can be hard because you're like, um like this is a good song. I would love to rap sometimes, even just to give my saxophone chops a break. But I'm not gonna do it if I'm playing at a jazz club or if I'm playing like I have a gig tomorrow. They're doing like a holiday tree lighting ceremony. And I don't even know much holiday music at all, based upon the way I was raised. So, but I know a couple of wintry songs and I'm gonna sprinkle them in um, interspersed with just like, classic jazz songs. And, I might be tempted to get the mic and start rapping, but I like that's not the place to be like, my name is Slim Shady, even though I know I can do it. It's not the place to do it. It's just not. So, um, yeah, I think I would say that's what sets me apart.
Yeah, you have to know like time and place. And it's like as tempting as it may be to just want to go full 180, it might not be like that might it's a risk and in like you said in the jazz club case of things, probably going to be a disappointing result rather than like if you pull that out when you're like rapping. Like it's jazz is one of those more like corners of the music
Hmm.
landscape in a way where it's like the people that like that and that is like what they're going for, whereas like rap is a little more mainstream and so if you throw up something fun them they're going to be a more musically open-minded crowd. So
Right, right.
yeah,
And it's one of those things that it's like also kind of been a surprise as people because I think as artists, you also don't realize not everybody likes every genre of music.
true.
Like a lot of times as artists, we like people will do different genres and we can still appreciate like, oh man, you did a great job. Like, oh, I love that, or that's cool. And a lot of times we'll listen to a lot of different genres. But what I've discovered is like no matter how and that's something I still struggle with trying to find, like you said, it was really hard for me to like name what my genre is. Because it's like if you like saxophone, are you gonna like his music? If you like hip hop, if you like it all between, like it's still a very niche thing to like kind of set apart. Um, but I think also learning that like, for a lot of people, they have one genre that they like.
Mm-hmm.
And you can attract that person as a fan, but not everyone is going to love every single genre. Sometimes you just give people what they want. And that way you can keep coming back.
What impact do you want to have with your music and with your artistry?
Um, Kind of touched on this a little bit beforehand. like I said, just if one person hears one of my songs and gets inspired to make something similar, that's amazing. And if one person, like I always say, my music is also very positive and it's meant to uplift, right? So the lyrics in all of my songs, if I'm doing a song that has lyrics, it's always going to be something that's designed to uplift you, motivate you, and make you feel good about whatever you have to do. Because that's what music has done for me for most of my life. So if I'm able to have that impact on someone, like I said, who's not a musician, that would be amazing. And if I can impact someone who's an artist and make them want to do something similar, that would be amazing too. Um, so really just to build people up, just to uplift, that's the number one impact that I want to have and I think that I can have.
Yeah, it all comes back to the like we said earlier, the passing the torch. Like somebody inspired me to do this. It's only fair that I continue that same like trajectory and try and pass it along to somebody else.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that brings us to the final question, which is why music?
Why music? Excellent question. Definitely not for the money. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, it's such a great question because it's like music is one of those things where it's like it's almost like no one does it, but everyone does it at the same time. If that makes any sense. Like there are so many musicians and guitar players and different people that play music out there. But also, when you tell random people like, "Oh yeah, I'm a musician," they're like, "Oh my God, that's crazy. That's so cool. You play music. I wish I could play music. I can't play music, but it's so cool that you do." And so, like I said, that makes the field extremely competitive, but it also can make the field um not as but it's also how you can be unique in the field as well. It's also how you can kind of, I guess, stand out. Like I said, if you find your own unique thing. But like I said, there's a lot of people that can do music and just choose not to do it professionally. And then there's a lot of people that just can't do it at all and they still enjoy it. Um, and so I think for me, it's always been the thing I was drawn to. And because of my love for music, it got me into music technology and understanding sound design, Foley design, stuff like that. And so that lets me into even more worlds of, discovering doing sound design for games or for films or for TV shows. Any of those things with music technology, I would love. And it all came from music, from understanding that, I love music and that's my passion. That's what I want to do. Um, and so for me, it's just like for a lot of people, like, what you want to do. And I don't think, like I said, with music, a lot of people aren't really offered another option. It's just kind of you shouldn't do music. You should go to college and get a real job, or you should become a band director. And they don't talk about like, well, you could design music for sound, you could design music for games, you could do all these different things with music or music technology. That if that was my 9 to 5, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, if that's what that is. So, um, I don't know. It's hard to say like why. I think it's just who I am. And I think that's just who I'm always going to be. Someone that lives, someone that loves music and music technology and wants to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there are so many opportunities to do all of the things, and it's it always comes from just a not unique for the lack of a better word, but like a unique place of yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
said, it's sometimes it's like hard to like exactly put a finger on it.
Right.
But it's like, like people say like I want to be a doctor because like I want to help people. And it's like, well, that's kind of what I want to do music too. I want to help people, I want to uplift people because I know music has had that effect on me. Um, I think the best way that I can describe it and the way most musicians is music has had such a powerful impact on me and my life and my emotions. And I want to have that same impact because I know what it's done for me. So the people that do music, those are the people that music always hits the hardest for them, if that makes sense. Like that
Yeah.
that song, that thing that you need, it always hits us really, really hard. And that's what led us to want to do it because we want to have that same impact that we
Hmm.
were impacted by.
Yeah. No, I think that's the right way to put it. It's it whatever strikes a little bit deeper and like reaches out and sticks out above the surface a little bit more is that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. You can check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.